a business, a big business, a successful business. And I want to be sane as I'm building my big business. That is balance my career and my business and also my life. If that's your desire, then this is your show. This is Now Tell Us. I'm your host, Anthony Morore. At Now Tell Us, we always have guests come and tell us stories. They come and inspire us, educate us on a subject. And today, we have a great guest with us who is going to join us real quick. His name is Joseph. Let me not pronounce the second name. He's going to teach us how to pronounce it. It's a hard one. Okay, without taking one more minute, we are going to meet him. And I'd like you to share this show with all your friends. If you have a question, please ask. If you have a comment, we love feedback. So please give us feedback. And now, let's go and meet Joseph. Here we go. Hello, Joy.
Hello, Anthony. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Welcome to Now Tell Us.
Thank you. It's Drolshagen. Every letter is
Drolshagen.
pronounced, and it looks great on the back of a hockey jersey.
So, do you play hockey in that?
I haven't played in a while, but yeah, I used to play. I've coached, and so yes.
Okay, that's wonderful. So, where are you?
I'm in South Carolina. I'm all the way to the west side of the state, up in the mountains. Is where I reside, and then I do a lot of traveling and stuff. So it's great to be here with you today.
Wonderful. It's great to see you. And now I also see that you shortened Joseph. I say Joseph, and then comes Joy.
Either one, either one.
Either one. So if I may call you Joy, Joseph, all are good. So I'm excited to learn about, because I love doing things and achieving things. Uh, Building a business is what I'm doing right now. And I want to balance things, because I discovered that I can spend all my time in the business and then I'm missing at home. All I have to be with my loved ones, and then my business is not going to grow. So this is why we are here and discussing this.
Absolutely. And the normal trajectory, easy for me to say. It's easier for me to say my last name than trajectory. The normal
Happens.
trajectory of somebody building a business.
Yeah.
And so many of the coaching programs out there, Anthony, are that you got to put massive actions, that you got to be willing to put things aside and put all of your efforts into it and such. And so what happens is we see people who are really excited about their business, they jump into it and they work themselves to exhaustion, burnout, fatigue, or even problems at home because of that unbalance. And then they slack off of it, or they decide they're not supposed to do that, or it's not supposed to happen for them. And at some point, and if they have that entrepreneurial spirit of starting their own business, at some point they'll come back out with it and they'll try the same thing again and over and over and over, experience the same results. And I am a product of that. My 20s, I've been a student of the works I'm doing today since in my 20s.
Yeah.
In my early 20s, I was a licensed builder. I was a realtor. I owned my own construction company. I've done so many different things, and I would do exactly that. I would just burn myself out trying to make it happen, and I would miss so many of the critical times of my life. Like, I'll give you a quick example. When I was in my upper 20s, I was married at the time, and we had been pregnant 2 times. We had babies born at like 24, 25 weeks, and they would live for an hour, a couple hours, on all the equipment at the hospital, and they'd pass away.
Oh.
And then the third pregnancy, my son was born. And so, and then we had this first 2 repeat another time with 2 more pregnancies. So out of 5 pregnancies, I have my son. So when I tell you that I adore my son, like, he is such a blessing in my life. On his first birthday, I wasn't at home celebrating his birth and celebrating his life and celebrating getting the honor of being a dad into him. And
Mm-hmm.
I was in Indiana. I lived in Michigan at the time, and I was in Indiana building a sales territory because I was trying to build that business up. And
Mm-hmm.
in doing so, to this day, I remember that day so vivid that I spent that whole day in tears and just so upset that I wanted to be with him, spending that time with him, but I was doing what I thought I was supposed to be doing
Mm-hmm.
because of my subconscious conditioning, which we'll get into in a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and then from there, having times like that I really missed, and there's a lot of other times. I spent a majority of my 30s and into my mid 30s to low 40s traveling every single week out of the year, building territories, developing new business, and I would run and gun 150 miles an hour trying to achieve what I was trying to achieve, and always with that promise, always with that thought
Mm-hmm.
that someday I'll arrive.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And someday I'll get to that point and then I'll have balance.
Mm-hmm.
And the someday never came for 3 decades. It never came.
Mm.
And so as I started instituting these tools in my own life, all of a sudden I started building more business than I had with all the massive efforts, easier.
Mm-hmm.
When I made that priority, that freedom in my life, that's the reason we want to own our own business, right? So we have freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And as I started implementing more of that freedom and more of the tools that I teach now today,
Mm-hmm.
it started opening up business easier than I'd ever gotten before and more consistently as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to enjoy that freedom. So I get to experience both worlds. I get to experience that freedom and that growth in business and that freedom of ownership in my own life as well.
And I'm curious to know what business were you doing back then, if it's okay for you to say. And do you still do that, or now you concentrate on helping other people achieve their own?
Well, I say a victim of circumstance, but I was conditioned from a young age that
Yeah.
a man gets a job and supports a family and hopefully lives long enough to enjoy some retirement.
Mm-hmm.
So I built a career up the corporate ladder all the way up to a vice president of sales.
Oh, okay.
And I specialized in building huge territories, but I also specialized later on in helping organizations that were in bankruptcy to get, excuse me for a second, to get back into profitability and do so in record timing.
Yeah.
But with that, I always owned my own business as well. That would be a full-time. I've owned multiple different construction companies. I said I was a builder up in Michigan, so I built some spec houses. I used to flip houses and get into some real estate stuff and things like that. And it's been in those areas. Once I finally got to a point of hitting that wall of just fatigue and burnout, and I just was willing to give up the entrepreneur thing at some point, saying it's just too hard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of the people I talk to today is it's too hard to try and be an entrepreneur. But it's not that it's really hard to be an entrepreneur. It's that we listen to all these people and all these programs and all these coaches and everything that tell us that we have to go, go, go. You got to put massive actions and exhaustive efforts, and you got to give it 110% and all that.
Yeah.
That is creating that cycle and that process of that.
Mm-hmm.
Once I broke that and I understood the total mindset, the conscious and subconscious mind and the conditioning and all of that stuff, I just started ultimately reprogramming my beliefs
Mm-hmm.
that it could be easy.
Mm-hmm.
And Anthony, I talk to so many people and I say, do you think it's even possible that you could grow your business and have more free time? And they'll say no. And they're adamant, no, it's not possible to do.
Yeah.
I can't do anything for those people.
Mm-hmm.
I've helped over almost 1,000 business owners, realtors, people from all walks of life, in truly changing their life over the past decade to experience greater results at what they're going after and more life freedom at the same time, to the point that I guarantee results to the clients that I work with, money back guarantee results.
Okay, now tell us, how's this? Tell us now. Tell us. That's where we are. We are at Now Tell Us show.
Sure. So the whole process begins. I kind of alluded to it. The entire process begins when we tap into that beginner mindset. So we have a conscious mind. Our conscious mind is everything we focus on, the words we use, thoughts we entertain, all of that's in the people we hang out with, things like that. One of the things I'll tell entrepreneurs, because they'll talk to their family, they'll talk to their friends, they'll talk to their coworkers and the job that they have, and then they'll be disgruntled about even starting a business. And it's like, well, sure, you're getting feedback from all these people who don't think it's possible. So how is that going to power you up? Get yourself networking with some entrepreneurs, with some business owners who are successful. Get yourself working with people, talking to people like that. That will change around. That will bring a shift in your beliefs of what's possible just in doing that. The beginner mindset goes like this. So we all know some things, right?
Yeah.
And so often I'll talk to people, and while I'm talking to them, they'll go, I know. And I go, no, you don't know. You know of and you know about, but you don't know it until you know it. So the beginner mindset is instead of knowing everything like our culture teaches, you have to have the answers, is what can I add to what I already know?
Yeah.
Make sense? Once we have that beginner mindset, then we can be open and a little more receptive to what's possible for us. So somebody that would say, no, I don't believe it's possible for me to grow my business and have more free time. It's just impossible.
Yeah.
That belief will drive them to it never being possible. So when I start with that, then I get into that belief of how it's possible. And when you look at all my testimonials on my website or any social media, the things that people say and stuff, it'll start sparking. Well, if that person did it, why can't I? If I have a realtor that I've worked with for about 9 months rather, who took their business from $7 million to $23 million in sales. And it was the only year of her adult life that she took 5 weeks of vacation in that same year. One of them was a 2-week trip to Israel, which had been on her bucket list for decades.
Yeah.
When people can see results like that, all of a sudden it's like, well, why can't I? Why can't I? And that's what I help people do. Now, does that all make sense, Anthony?
It makes sense. It makes sense.
So from there, what I do, and this goes from the organizations I've helped that are in financial upset or bankrupt, all the way to bankruptcy and stuff, get back to profitability, or the business owner who's just killing themselves and living on a line of credit, trying to pay everything just to keep it all going and stuff, is I will help them to the individual, to the, it can be even be somebody with personal transformation that's looking for the same tools apply, is I help them develop what I call a dynamic vision. And I have road mapping tools to help them do that. Because what happens is when we're looking through our logical mind, which I sometimes call the Antichrist, but when we're using our logical mind and we're strategizing, we're coming up with the to-dos and we're coming up with the action plan and how it's going to happen and where it's going to happen and all that, we're missing out on such a huge chunk from when we have a vision, when we have a strong vision for the end point. What's it look like? What's that successful business look like?
Yeah.
What's it look like to be the person running that business? And then how does it feel to be living that life of that? When I can take somebody from there, and from that point, I can help them start putting on that vision, which by putting it on is going to automatically start bumping into the conditioning and the programming in the subconscious.
Okay.
And help them. And then I have the tools within the SMT method to help them quickly shift that. And they just start opening up more of that. So really, the bottom line of it is people start achieving greater results with less effort. The other thing right along with that I do, Anthony, is help what I call develop systems of accelerating habits.
Okay.
So we all have unique gifts and talents within us and bred in us that we enjoy living through and things like that. And as an example, have you ever seen somebody do a social media live and you can tell the person can't stand doing what they're doing?
Yeah, I've seen all kind of.
How long do you watch that for?
I just log out.
Yeah, because I feel bad for the person because I can tell they're not enjoying it at all. So the way they're coming across. Now, have you ever seen somebody doing a social media live and you can tell they're like that, they're living, they're on, they love it?
Oh yeah, sure.
And how long do you watch that for?
You keep engaged all the time.
Exactly, it engages you.
The last decimal point.
And what it is the first person is doing that because somebody told them they have to do that to be successful. but they don't like doing it. It doesn't come across well. It doesn't open up their attraction factor and things like that. When we start developing systems of accelerating habits, it's unique to the individual I'm working with. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't tell any of my clients what to do. I help them find that pathway for them. And so
Yeah.
once they identify what those are, then we spend more time doing those things, and it starts opening up more areas because we're in an attraction mode versus a blocking and a limiting mode of some doing things we don't like to do.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
So helping them develop that and getting more time in there, having a vision to come from, and then putting time into the things they're doing. One of my personal mentors was the late Bob Proctor,
Mm.
and he
Yeah.
used to say this, and I loved it. Is he said, success isn't about doing certain things. And that's that list of all the stuff people tell us we have to do to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Successful people do things a certain way.
Mm.
And that's when we start getting into alignment, and we end up with delightful and surprising results out of the things we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Making those shifts. I have another client of mine in Ohio. He does wholesaling, and I met him about almost a year ago now. And I met him, and he was doing like $34,000 a month in revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And when I met him, he was telling me, he's living on a line of credit. The 34,000 doesn't cover all his costs and everything, so he uses a line of credit. And I said, where would you love to be? He'd love to be at $50,000. And I'm thinking, really, the best place you could be would be like $50,000, but that's how far he could expand right then, And he said 50,000 is I can pay everything. I can start paying a little bit off and kind of, paying down the line of credit and things like that.
Yeah.
That was in October, September last year.
Mm.
January, he achieved $250,000 in revenue.
Wow.
February, he was about $215,000 in revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And March, he was at like 230, almost 250 again.
Mm-hmm.
In April, he just toppled over 200,000. He's got a few days left in the month.
Mm.
Those are the kind of results that are possible. So now I said to him, Anthony, I go, okay, so let's build that next level. Where do you want to be? He goes, I want to be at $1 million a month.
Mm-hmm.
And he believes it. He didn't even believe the 50,000 when we set that up.
Yeah.
Which taps back into that beginner mindset.
Beginner mindset.
Yes.
What can I add to what I already know? I remember that. I put that down.
Yeah. If we go forward in that, all areas of life, if we go forward in that, and it makes things so much easier, and we start gaining so much more than when we're going about how culture teaches us the I have to know method.
Mm-hmm.
And the things we're talking about right now, I deal with business people, I deal with realtors, I deal, small, I won't deal with like a larger corporation anymore. And taking them through bankruptcy and being a part of that, it's just so hard. It's such a hard thing with 380 employees and customer retention and so much. I didn't want to do it anymore. I was glad I got to do it a few times, but I'm glad for what I do now.
Working with the individuals, yeah. Uh-huh.
And it works in any area of our life. So I'll tell you this, I'm 58 years old.
You look young.
Thank you. A year ago, I said, I really, for whatever reason, I want to go into my 60s more muscular than I've ever been in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I started applying these principles, almost playing with them, almost like a little bit of a sense like, I don't think it can work here, but I'm going to try it and I'm going to be open-minded to it, And
okay.
So the most I've ever bench pressed, and I'm just using this as an example of how this stuff works. The most I've ever bench pressed was probably maybe 200, 205 pounds.
Mm.
Within the last 4 months, it's built up and I'm almost 300 pounds in my bench press right now.
Wow.
I can look at myself in the mirror and see muscles I've never seen before. And again, I'm not using that as self-pride in me. I'm using that for how strong the methods are, that it can be used in any area of our life that we want to improve.
And maybe we could benefit from just a bit of what you could be willing to share with us at Now Tell Us. The process or something that
absolutely.
We can get going even before we come to you.
Well, like I said, one of it is that beginner mindset. We can practice that. We have every moment of our life is an opportunity to practice that.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'll tell you, I was working with a client about 4 or 5 years ago,
Uh-huh.
and I was talking. He said, "I don't have any paradigms, which are habits. Ultimately, they break down to habits." He said, "I don't have any paradigms in my life. I don't go to the same job every day. I go to a different way. I do." And I said, "Okay, do me a favor." I just came up with this. I go, "Do me a favor. When you shower tomorrow, I want you to lather your hair 12 times. Count it: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then stop."
Mm-hmm.
And do you know, Anthony, he called me back the next day and called me an MFer. And he said I couldn't do it. I stopped at 12 and I just couldn't do it. He said he got more shampoo and he had to go through his pattern in order to feel like he did it the right way. Now that's a silly example for shampooing your hair, but it's such a great example of how those patterns in our life are so ingrained that we don't even realize we're living through it. So when I'm telling somebody even about a testimonial from a client, or my client is telling somebody about what they've achieved, that conditioning will go, "No, you didn't. No, something's not right here. That's impossible." And we'll actually find a way to negate it, when ultimately what it's doing is causing us to miss out on a potential in our life. So living in our patterns, and our patterns are all embedded within what I call a motherboard within our subconscious mind. And our that conditioning is what fires the brain waves for what actions we take and what actions we don't take. So can you see, with somebody with really strong beliefs of what this type of results are impossible, it's going to fire brain waves not to take any action into it, when it could be to get to that most desired place in life. So once it's that beginner mindset, and this is the reason why so many people will set out on their own. They'll get self-study books, they'll get, self-help books, programs, things like that, where they try and do it on their own. But we're the people with the conditioning trying to bring about change. We don't even see it in ourselves. That's the reason I keep a coach in my life, because they can help me see things that seem perfectly normal to me, but they're causing limitation. So getting some assistance in identifying, once you get the beginner mindset, and then creating a vision of what is that end point, what's that really look like and feel like to be at that end point, and then getting some assistance to help you see your blocks, because we're not going to see them on our own. And there's a whole slew of tools, but that would get somebody moving in that area. And anybody listening to this right now, Anthony, if you want to test yourself, if you want to test that beginner mindset and that vision, I'm going to offer your audience something here today for complimentary that will help you to take a step into that conditioning, take a step into that "I don't believe it's true."
That's very good of
see
you.
if you don't experience a different outcome.
Yeah, because someone said that if you keep doing things the way you've always been doing them, then you got to keep on getting the results that you've been getting, which you
Is
don't
that not
like.
Einstein's theory?
Yeah, and you don't like that, so you'd better do something in a different way to
And
achieve a
there's a
different
quote
result.
I love by Wallace Waddles.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "If you are not consciously choosing to be rich, excellent, and healthy, then you're unconsciously choosing to be poor, mediocre, and unhealthy." And when you look at that difference right there between conscious and unconscious, somebody going about business and killing themselves to fatigue, or upset because they're missing the important times of their life, or they don't have freedom or balance or things like that, that's not consciously a conscious choice we're making to do that. It's just based on our beliefs. So so people go into jobs they can't stand, and they do it for years and decades, hoping to get to that end point of retirement, right? That's not consciously living. And so when you're looking at that, kind of like you said, to get so what happens is people get in that mode of taking common action after common action after common action, which is coming from that conditioning, and they're expecting different results. And the only way to get uncommon results is you have to take some uncommon actions. And that's what this is all about, is taking some uncommon actions to get those uncommon results. And it can be a little bit uncomfortable, because it's taking us out of our comfort zone, and it's taking us out of our conditioning of how we're used to things being. but we can't get someplace other than where we are if we're doing the things that we're used to doing. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. A lot of sense.
So,
Wow, wow. To whoever is listening out there, this is now Tellers, and Joy is telling us how to build a business or a career in this case and maintain a healthy lifestyle. Um, yeah, and it's quite a much that you've shared with us, and we really appreciate that. Now, what we dealing with clients, and it's kind of something that you may have touched already, but what was the most difficult client or difficult moment in the life of your coaching that you've experienced?
there really haven't been a whole lot of them. I mean, you figure I've worked with almost 1,000 clients over the past decade.
Hmm.
There haven't, but there are a couple that stand out.
Yeah.
And one is somebody who has experienced failure after failure after failure,
Hmm.
because it's so ingrained in their conditioning. It's so hard to break that conditioning that you got to really break it into small molecules to help them get into that success side of things.
Hmm.
And really, it doesn't happen completely until they get buy-in into it, until they experience it and recognize what they're experiencing. So helping do that. And then the other one that's been really difficult is the know-it-all,
Hmm.
the person who knows everything about everything and I'm not a passive coach. I am all about my clients' results. So if somebody is going through that mode, I'll call them out again and again and again. And a couple of times I've had people who have gotten verbally upset at me for calling them out on that. And I know what it really is they don't want to be like that. They just have such a hard time not being like that it can take a little while to kind of break that and get that knowledge point where they're aware of it before they do it. And that's the process that I take them through. It ends up being really good. The first time it happened, it was like, dang, but as I got used to it and understood it more, it's a process that I have to take people through it. And that awareness, becoming aware of that, it's not a light switch. We don't just turn it on and off. It's an opening of, so we become more and more aware. And so now, because of that, I've developed some additional tools that I take my clients through that right from the start, we start applying these tools that help build that awareness. And it's not building the awareness towards the blocks. It's building the awareness in other areas. So then we can go, when it does come up towards a block, they've already been practicing the awareness. So it's like, oh, I get it. And so what used to, and I'll tell you, Anthony, what used to take me years to figure out and implement in my life as the guinea pig for all the works I do today, my clients achieve in weeks now.
1 minute, sorry.
You live by a shipyard?
1 minute. Let me get that.
Excuse me.
And it's taken long. Oh, sorry for that.
Obviously, the system did not
going.
like my last answer.
Keep going.
So,
yeah, keep going.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. So that was it, really. I mean, those are the two areas and stuff. But now, like I said, I've implemented additional tools in what I do to help people start building that beginner mindset, to help people start building that, having that awareness before we get to a level where it's pushing against the patterns and paradigms that we need to shift. Then that we can identify it.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So maybe because we are almost coming to the end of the show, and you promised us something. I don't want us to get out of this show without getting that something that you promised us.
You're good at what you do, Anthony. You're good at what you do. So one of the things we talk about these tools, and there's a lot more that I utilize and take clients through. And one of the things, and so one of the things I want to offer anybody listening to this right now that may have sparked on something, even if you think this is bullshit, like I'd love to have a conversation with you on that. And so what I'm going to do is open up an invite to you.
Okay.
To have a free laser focused coaching session with me and experience it firsthand. If nothing else, you're going to walk away with tools to start understanding how to open up that other side that we've been talking about with the beginner mindset, the awareness. But what we'll do is we'll get on that call and look at where's your biggest struggle and help get you some tools to start bringing closure to that and start opening up what's been your limitations up until now.
Yeah.
And you can schedule that at coachwithjoseph.com. Anybody can go to coachwithjoseph.com
Mhm.
and schedule it. There's some questions that you'll find in there. I do that with purpose because what I find is it helps the person in your situation that's scheduling come to the call with more clarity on what they want to discuss. And then it helps me to be of more service to you during our call.
Mm. So that's coachwithjoseph.com.
Yes.
You can go and get and just connect with Joseph and achieve your success in business or career, and do it balancing your life.
I would love that. I love that conversation. So anybody that's open to it, and again, this is a challenge for you being open minded, even just to see what's possible in that conversation for you.
Wonderful. We are glad that you came to our show, and thank you very much for that offer. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. Great conversation, Anthony.
Yeah, but before we go, we'd like you to leave us with a few words that we should always remember. Which are they?
Yeah. Always remember that you are more powerful than your situations, circumstances, and conditions surrounding you. Always remember that everything you have to build to live that life that you desire is already within you. It just needs to be uncovered and brought forth in the outward. And last thing is always remember that you living in your purpose and with your passion, you experiencing life as you desire, helps the entire world, the ripple effect we never know about.
Hmm, that's beautiful. Very
Thank
beautiful.
you.
Yes, and thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Absolutely. Very enjoyable, Anthony.
Yeah, this is the end of the show. I've been your host, Anthony Moirore, and together with our guest today, Joseph Drolshagen,
Perfect.
we are saying bye for now.
Be blessed, everyone.
Yeah, go be the best version of yourself, succeeding in
Yes.
every direction that you go. That's about it. Bye.